Right, so some news from Unite insiders today is the Sharon Graham-led Unite Union seems set on continuing to worship the ground Keir Starmer walks on and quite prepared to acquiesce to him, accommodate him. And this is all in stark contrast to the will of the Unite membership itself, of course. We're sick of this brill-creamed Burke who is as much use to them as a handbrake on a canoe, refusing to attend protests, refusing to show any level of pertinent support, pays lip service regarding repealing the latest set of anti-trade union legislation, which doesn't go far enough, but for which you've got to take his word on, and that's worth about as much as snow is to an Eskimo. It was only last week, after all, that Sharon Graham's union, someone from up on high, perhaps Sharon herself, but there are people who say, no, nothing to do with her, decreed that no showings of the Jeremy Corbyn film The Big Lie would be permitted in Unite buildings. Well, why? Why is that? You don't do politics, you keep telling us, Sharon, yet for somebody that says that, you seem to do an amazing amount of jumping, it seems, for Team Keith. You've taken the Labour right position regarding this film. You've taken the establishment and media baron position. You've taken the despicable position of those that would weaponise the issue of anti-Semitism when the film contains nothing remotely anti-Semitic. So what are you doing, and whose wishes are you and your union serving here? Because it seems to me that whoever has decided all of this, you're ignoring those of us funding the union in favour of somebody the union itself funds all too handsomely. Regarding this film, you've angered your own members in this, who are the ones wanting to put on the show. And why wouldn't they, when Corbyn can and does appear on picket lines in solidarity with them, with other workers, your workers amongst others, your members, Sharon, whereas Starmer flatly refuses to, even sacking shadow ministers who have done just that. So you're backing the wrong horse. Your members know it, and they're not happy, bit disgusted. But that hasn't finished yet, has it? No, sadly, there's even more happening now, isn't there? Unite have, inexplicably, for a leadership that, as I've said, does not do politics and is focused on the wants and needs of members in the workplace, so they say, decided to invite Starmer to speak at Unite's conference later this month. Well, surely that's entirely reasonable, Damo. I mean, Unite is an affiliated union. Why would they not invite the leader of the party they fund to such an event? And to that I'd say, well, where do you start? Repealing the 2016 anti-trade union legislation is only undoing the most recent stuff. Even before then, we had the most restrictive anti-trade union laws going. The latest threats to the right to protest, where Suella Braverman sneaked through legislation allowing the police to deal with any protest displaying inconvenience in their opinions, amounting to the vaguely termed more than minor, and how they choose to interpret that, can and no doubt will be used at some point against strikes and protest at some point. Another Orgreave on our hands, potentially, only this time it won't be done with the deceit shown then, justice still to be served there, of course, but it'll be more blatant and lawful even. And Starmer whipped his lords to abstain on pushing back against Braverman's power grab. This is a guy who Sharon Graham said she would keep funding under review over, which has amounted to continuing to give Labour £1 million of members' dues a year because she now believes his intentions are the right ones. But frankly, if you're believing anything Starmer says, I've got a bridge to sell you, because he's hardly stuck by a single promise he's pretty much ever made since becoming Labour leader. Under his leadership, there have been no fewer than 4 rounds of redundancies as Labour loses money hand over fist and workers lost their jobs. But he did manage to hire a former Israeli spy to work for him, a guy involved in extorting Palestinians and cyber surveillance, apparently, allegedly. So we can only surmise he could find money to target the left of his own party. Why else would he take this guy on with, despite all of that? But not only did he sack workers he couldn't afford any longer, he also used fire and rehire to keep some on the worst paying conditions that deceitful tactic brings, something the Unite Union was especially vociferous in opposing, or at least it was once upon a time when other companies were doing it. If Sharon Graham is truly on top of her brief at Unite, and I'm not going to bring that into question, merely her accommodation of Starmer, she should know all of this. If she does know it, that makes her Starmer support all the more risible. And if she doesn't, then I've clearly given her more credit than she deserves. Either way, she should be distancing herself from Keir Starmer. Moreover, it's what many of her members want too, and she should be listening to them above anyone else, with one insider apparently calling her behaviour hypocrisy beyond belief. Coming up at that same conference, 2 major Unite groups, the North East Yorkshire and Humber Health RISC, 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 standing for Regional Industrial Sector Committee, and the LGBT Plus Committee of Unite, have voted to put disaffiliation from the Labour Party on the agenda. Such is the degree of disgust amongst lay members of Unite at the Starmer regime, particularly in relation to him scoffing at the Coventry bin strike not so long ago. Starmer has already seen one trade union, the BFAWU, disaffiliate. That's a founding member of the Labour Party gone, yet did not care, as it was a small union and didn't bring them in much money. Unite is Labour's biggest funder. This would hurt a lot more if it were to pass, and I guess Starmer being there to bear witness would be somewhat glorious, but I fancy it's a bit of a stretch to see it achieved. Nonetheless, for such a motion to be brought, ratified and got as far as being presented to conference, that should be intensely embarrassing for both Starmer and for Sharon Graham. Now she's extended this invitation. Just as Starmer does not put the needs of ordinary people, and certainly not Labour members, front and centre, it's becoming increasingly hard for Unite members to say their own leadership is behaving much better. And after you've liked, shared and subscribed to the channel, as I hope you will, if you found this little video informative, you can check out this recommendation here, where Unite itself engaged in fire and rehire tactics regarding the most senior Unite officer in Ireland, something that Sharon Graham avoided going to Ireland for quite a while over. A cancer survivor, as he was, no less. And I'll hopefully see you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.